Okay, so you're moving to Orlando, Florida, or you're already here and you're like, man, should I rent or should I buy a home? Because everyone loves to tell you, like, oh, buy a home, it's the American dream. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you why you might not want to even touch a single real estate property here in Orlando. And I'm going to get after it right now. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge. On this channel, I talk about moving and living here in Orlando, Florida, and why I love making new videos for you every Tuesday and Thursday. What I love even more, being a licensed real estate agent here in Orlando, Florida, is helping you with your real estate decisions. So this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me when you're making the move or with any real estate decisions you need in Orlando, Florida. All right, getting into it. The biggest question I hear all the time is, Cameron, should I just rent if I'm moving to Orlando? Should I purchase, or I've been living here for a while? Like, should I buy a home? The market seems high. The rates are going crazy now. Like, I don't know. And I'm just going to sit down and do nothing and not make a decision about it. So like, I could sit here and honestly, when I got into this real estate profession, I think we hear it all the time, right? Like, oh, you should buy a home. Oh, buy a home. Like, it's, you know, the American dream. Look, I own a home. I've always own the residence that I live in. A lot of it, obviously, I guess you can call renting when I lived in the military and was living in the barracks, but it's a different story. But I'm not going to sit here and give you numbers about, oh, like it saves you money when you own during buy and the equity and this and that. And like, I'm just going to get down to the nitty gritty of like, should you even do it? Who does it make sense for? Who does it not make sense for? Like, is it worth it? Or, you know, just a whole gamut. So getting into it, like, you know, what does rent look like in Orlando? Look, let's do like single family homes, right? Like all the way from the small end to, let's say, like a middle class, upper middle class, like rent cost. I mean, you'll find anywhere from like, we'll say like just in Orange County alone. So you'll find anywhere probably from like a 2-bed house, let's say like $1,500 all the way up to like over $3,000 a month. It's just a wide range. Like it all comes down to, does the home have a pool? Like how big is the home? Is it in Winter Park, or are you going to like Oviedo? Like what? It all depends where you're living, like what house you're looking for, pool, no pool, how much land, like but that's like, you're going to roughly spend that, right? And I will tell you that sometimes, especially depending how much money you put down, yes, you could save money. Josh, I told you I wasn't going to do this, well, I'm doing it. Well, yes, you could technically have a lower payment, but thing is like we'll talk about people, like a lot of people that reach out to me to help them with the real estate decisions when they're moving here, like anything of the sort, is they're like, well, I don't know if I want to stay there forever. And now that's the person who's like, does it make sense to buy a home? Well, yes. Comparatively, looking over like recent years, everyone's like, it's super expensive and now rates are over 5%. Like, Cameron, this is nuts. Like, I don't even know if I want to make that monthly payment. Well, it's always like the big picture, right? So yes, if you're like, look, I'm just going to try it for 6 months because I'm single and I just want to, you know, I have a remote job and they let me work from anywhere in the US and I'm just going to go here and try it out. Yeah, sure, rent. Like, you don't have to purchase anything. Like, you know, choose like the best location you want to live in, whether it's like downtown in a condo or what you want to do. Maybe right in a condo right next to Disney World. You know, they have new construction condos going up there. And it's just like, look, find like rent what you probably couldn't buy. And that's like the biggest thing I tell people. It's like you find an area and you're like, I want to rent here and whatever, which is weird because obviously people are like, well, Cameron, like, don't you help people buy and sell homes? Yeah, sure. But there are people like renting does make sense in certain situations, especially if you know you're not going to live in an area and you're like, look, I'm just going to give it a year tops and see what happens. Sure. Why not? Like, give it a shot with rent, you know? You still have to decide what area to live in and things like that. And we even have a Facebook group for all those that reach out to us and we throw them in there. It's just a huge database of people who are moving to Orlando and we all just help each other. Like, there are moms in there who will help you answer questions if you have concerns and things to do for the kids. It's awesome. So that's something that, like, no matter what you're doing, like, that's something that, you know, we love to have, just because, man, when you're moving somewhere new and you don't have a database or people that can help you in place, like it's stressful. There's a lot going on. It helps to be in a community of like-minded people so that way you can get help and maybe learn things you normally would. It would take you years to figure out because you're not from here. Now, moving on to the buy side, it's like, why would you buy, right? And don't get me wrong, like when we initially were looking at here, we were like, yeah, maybe a 3 to 5 year plan. Well, even before we made a discovery trip, right? Like, that's what we were thinking in our heads before making the discovery trip and like going through the whole thing we love. Like, now we love it. I love this whole, like, even Central Florida, but especially Orlando. It's awesome. I think there's so much opportunity here. And it's like, well, some people are like, well, I only want to live there for a year or two. Like, does it make sense to buy a home? And like, it can, honestly. Like, but I tell a lot of people, it's like, well, what do you want to do? Are you looking to hopefully gain, like, when you live here for a year or two, what are you looking to do with the home? Are you looking to just sell it at that time? Like, are you looking to rent it out? Like, what is your thoughts that's going to happen with that home, regardless of what the market does? Like, what are you trying to do? And a lot of times they'll be like, well, I thought about maybe I could Airbnb it afterwards. If I choose not to live here, I'd love the home to be able to, to Airbnb it, short-term rentals. That way I can come back to still visit if I choose, a couple years down the road to not live here anymore. I'm like, okay, great. Well, that all plays into when you're moving here, because you can easily choose a home that has the ability to be rented out. It's in path of progress. You put on like your investor hat. If you've never done it before, like someone like me is here to help you, because I've invested before. I still will continue to invest in some way, shape, or form. And like, I get it. And it's a process, but it's a whole different journey, right? Like, it's the emotional, like I'm living there for a primary residence journey. But then you also have the, well, I want the home, like even if I do want to stay in Orlando, like I'll probably turn this home into a rental. Well, that's a whole nother hat you have to put on, and a whole nother numbers and things you have to look at when making that decision. And like I tell everyone, like Central Florida, like especially Orlando, but when I say Central Florida, it's because like it's the whole market as a whole, Tampa, Orlando, but especially Orlando, because I think it's gotten more popular, especially in the recent 5 years, and COVID just pushed that over the top. It feels like other like built out markets like California, like New York City, and it feels like it's a market that has been undervalued a little bit for some period of time. Like, obviously it's still, inflation's inflation and all that stuff, and we're not going to get into that conversation, but I do feel like it's an area where there's still opportunity to own a great home, to where if maybe you just want to get into a nice neighborhood when you move here, you pay down your home, and like you're in a situation where you're like, man, I could rent this out and make some money. Then like we'll get you into a home and situation where you like, it's a smart play regardless of what the market does, and you can be set up for more, like really building generational wealth is a whole other thing I really love doing. But a lot of times, like, there's still a lot of opportunity in owning a home. But do you have to buy when moving here? Absolutely not. But it all comes down, like I said, individual situations. And I've had people reach out to me and they're like, well, I don't know if I want to, purchase when I move here and things like that. I'm like, cool, I'll have this conversation, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you have to buy a home. Like, obviously, like that's how I support my family. That's how I make a living. But aside from that, like, no one's here to force you to do anything. Really, it comes down to you just need to like all the information, make the right decision, decide what's good for you, what isn't, and then jump on it. But yes, like there's still a lot of opportunity. Like, even though it's a crazy market, and like, Orlando has been extremely competitive this last year, and it's still not fully cooling off, maybe at the higher end spectrum of home prices, but it's still a competitive market in a lot of standpoints. But really, if you can make a smart decision, like you could be in a situation where you could have a good property, 3 or 5 years down the road that you can just rent out instead of having to sell it, while you choose a better location in Orlando to move into. Because like I think everyone, especially when they come here, they move here and then like they might choose a really great neighborhood with great schools, but then they might reach back out and say, hey Cameron, like I know I've been living in Winter Garden, but like we're doing pretty well for ourselves, and I think we want to move to Dr. Phillips because we just love it that much more. Like, I know it's like on the border of each other, but like I really love Dr. Phillips, love the atmosphere, and I want to make that change. And that's something that happens all the time. And now they're home, and now that they buy the right home in the right area, and like they have that good mindset when they went into it, not only do they have a home they got to enjoy for those years, now they have a home that can actually help their family just gain a better financial foundation. And not everyone thinks that way, but it also understand that owning a rental property is this whole nother stress in itself. And if you've never done it, make sure you know the full scoop of what you're getting into, because it is stressful. It can be another job if not done properly. And but a lot of times that's what I tell people. It's like, well, why? You always come down to like, why? Like, well, why are you against buying a home? Is it what the news is telling you with how crazy the home prices are and rates and all these things? It's like, well, yeah, they go crazy. It's like, well, okay, like, reaching out to someone like myself who like, this is what I live and breathe every single day. We can have this conversation. Like, in reality, like everything comes and goes as it always has in the real estate market. So if you're just getting swayed from the fact of how the news is portraying how everything's crazy, and it is crazy. A lot of us are really wanting to see that continued push into a neutral market, meaning like there's not crazy seller heavy. It's kind of like neutral, and we're all hoping for it, because it does get a little crazy when it's one-sided and like either the seller or the buyer has all the power. Like, neutral markets are always a really good time because you can negotiate and really not have to be sweating every time a home hits the market and trying to make an offer the same day. But all of it plays into it. But like I said, like renting could make sense. Like if you really, you could care less about owning your own home. You're like, I'm not against renting, and I might want to move 12 months from now. Well, yeah, figure it out, get it done. But a lot of times, especially if you have kids, like I don't know, it's like there is something about owning your own home and like being in charge of it, not having someone over there to dictate what's going on and to be able to tell you how you should live your life. But owning a home to where you get to enjoy it, you get to upgrade it, you can make it a nice thing for you to live in, for your family, and things like that. And especially with like the awesome ability of new construction, like the St. Cloud, they got another big community coming into St. Cloud and things like that. So like it's just like the permits. I think Florida was number 2 I saw nationally when it comes to permits for builders in terms of construction. And Central Florida and Orlando are no exceptions to that. Like they're trying to build more homes because the demand is still there. And it's really one of those things. Like we had a client reach out who he had enough time to where he's like, well, yeah, I could just build a home and get a brand new home. In that case, it's like, well, you could rent an older home, or you could buy a home and get a brand new home with brand new everything and really get to enjoy your own place that's brand new. A lot of the communities might have pools and things like that. And, it really, like I said, it always comes down to personal situation. But, is it better to rent than buy? Maybe. Like I said, like a lot of times, like always, like one thing I've heard is like you rent where you can't buy. So regardless of what your budget is, like, could you afford to like buy like a condo, high rise or anything like that? Like maybe not, because prices tend to be higher in city areas, right? And a lot of times you might be like, well, I can afford the rent, but like I don't think I can qualify for that area. Well, if you can afford the rent, then yeah, maybe that's best. That way you can get a full idea of that area is even for you, and things like that. Sometimes if you are even set on like you have kids and you're like, well, I want this school district and I cannot find anything that fits. Well, then maybe you rent to get into that school district and we just keep you in mind for your lease. Maybe you have maybe you're lucky and you can get set up on a month-to-month lease. Not all cities allow that. A lot of them do have lease requirements because it's how they try and keep down the short-term rentals so they don't flood the market. But maybe you can be in a situation where you have a month-to-month lease and you really could just continue to shop for a home and be ready when that time comes. That option is also always there. Not always the common one to find. It definitely creates some more stress because you feel like you're not in a permanent situation. Like you're like, well, am I moving? Like what's going on? Like, it creates some stress. But to finish everything off, it comes down to the individual situation. Renting makes sense. Buying can make sense. Yes, I do think buying a home, even if you don't want to, even if you're like, I'm going to leave in a period of time, like buying the right home in the right location can still financially help you and your family. So it's always something to look into. Or, maybe you do want to rent. Maybe you do just want to like come here and test the waters to see if you really do want to permanently stay here. Either way, when it comes to, helping you, if you do want to buy a home and you want to make that really good decision and you're coming here, or maybe you already live here, you've been renting, you're like, now, Cameron, I am ready to jump on this. Well, then this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me. You can send me a call. You can call me, text me, email me, whatever you have to do. I am here to help you in that real estate decision, especially if I can talk right now, jeez. And especially when it comes to making the move. It's what I do every single day, and I absolutely love it. So I hope this video provided value to you. I hope it gave you a good idea. Maybe you would want to buy, or maybe you would want to rent. And without that, I will see you in the next video.